Now let's bring out the cast and creative minds behind Vampire Academy. Please welcome to the stage showrunner, executive producer, director, and writer Julie Plec. Showrunner, executive producer, and writer Marguerite MacIntyre. And your cast, he plays Dimitri Belikov. Please welcome to the stage Kieron Moore. She's your Rose Hathaway, Sisi Stringer. Please bow down for Lissa Dragomir. It's Daniela Nieves. And he's Christian Ozera. It's Andre Dae Kim. Now, while they all get settled, friendly reminder that if you want to follow along with this panel on social media, please follow @Peacock TV and use the hashtag Vampire Academy. Welcome to Comic-Con, everyone.
Thank you.
So, honestly, there was so much to unpack from that first look, but I want to start all the way at the beginning. Julie and Marguerite, you've spent over a decade in the world of vampires already, with Vampire Diaries, the originals, and Legacies. So what inspired you? What inspired you to jump back into the genre with Vampire Academy?
So, I read these books, the whole book series, back in, I think I want to say like 2007 or 2008, on a nice little vacation while I was working on a show called Kyle XY, starring this lady here, which, by the way, was my first Comic-Con. And I loved the books, and back then nobody was making this kind of television, and certainly nobody really gave a crap about the kind of television I wanted to make yet. Certainly no one was like knocking on my door to say, just bring us whatever. But then, in 2020, somebody did knock on my door and say, hey, what if you could make any show that you've never had a chance to make, what would it be? And the answer was Vampire Academy. And the response was, great, let's go do it. And that was Universal Television and Peacock, and they instantly said yes. I thought they might be a little bit like, are you sure? Like, more vampires? But no, they were happy. And so then I placed the call to my beloved friend and brilliant writer, formerly known as Sheriff Forbes. I'm still sad about that. And she hopped on the train.
Mm. And how is Vampire Academy going to be different from what fans have seen on Vampire Diaries, Originals, and Legacies?
Well, for one, you've just seen 20 minutes or 16 minutes or so, and for anybody who's fans of the other shows, I think that just the look of this show is so singularly unique. It's certainly nothing that I've ever made before, not in a place I've ever shot before, not in a world that I've ever tried to design or tell stories in before. So just that alone makes it a really special piece. But also, we're telling a story about the world that we live in today, and I'll let the smart one to my left pick up from there.
Well, I was with Julie when she read those books. We were on a little baby vacay during Kyle XY, and she was like, these are really good books. It was before she'd even read Vampire Diaries. And I read them, and I liked them, but I didn't really remember them as deeply as she did. And when she came to me and said, hey, Julie tells it differently.
No, I said, hey, you want to do those great books about vampires? She's like, no. Why would I do another vampire show?
Which isn't really technically true. I think she's being a little dramatic. But listen, anybody who has seen the difference between what Vampire Diaries was and what Originals was and what Legacies was, all wonderful shows with really different tones, would be really dumb to think that Julie Plec couldn't do it again in a different form. And when I went back into those books, I realized, I had loved them, really loved them. And then I said, oh, and now I know why now. It's about a class system that is unsustainable, that is falling apart, that is unfair. There is regime change. There is real struggle in that land. And I was like, well, that is familiar. And there's a way that we can all sort of understand the pressures that these two beautiful young women are under, being from different parts of society, and a society that doesn't really want them to be best friends and doesn't want them to be who they are to each other. So I was like, I get it. I want in on this. And then it was the joy of saying, what's the version for us? Like, we can go anywhere. We can do anything. We were so lucky. Our partners in this said, kind of do what you want. And we got to go shoot it in Spain and make this image of it, which is unique. And also Rochelle Mead's books have different vampire rules, which also made it unique. So it was really, really a fun new world to play in.
And when it comes to adapting beloved book series, there's always a tricky fine line with how much you want to stay true to the story and true to the books versus how much you want to make it your own. And since we've already seen a version of Vampire Academy on the big screen, which, again, we're not going to talk about, how did you approach adapting these books for this series?
For us, whenever you sit down to tell a story, the first thing you do is you put all the ideas you have up on the equivalent of a big mental whiteboard. And when you're adapting a show, all those cards that are going up on your whiteboard are cards of moments that you loved so much in the show, in the books as you read them. Our writer's room whiteboard, even though it was a Zoom room and a theoretical board, was filled with thousands of story ideas and character traits and lines of dialogue and pieces of mythology before we even had an idea of our own. And we very early on made it clear to ourselves and to the room that our job here was to preserve the things that we loved about the books when we read them, so that we were staying true to the story and to the characters in the world that Rochelle had built, and not forgetting to dramatize all the incredible, amazing moments along the way. So then we had to decide, all right, well then what decisions do we make as storytellers who need to structure this series, not to mention the first season. And the very first change came in how we began the story. The movie began the story, so I believe the way the books began the story, when we set out to do that, and then all of a sudden realized, but all this stuff that happened on page -10 of the book as backstory, all these memories about Lissa and her family and what happened between Lissa and Rose on the night of that fateful car accident and who Sonia Karp was, like those are stories that are begging to be told in real time. And that started our decision to start the story in a different place and find our way back to all the tentpoles of the books along the way.
Mm. And who here on the cast has read the Vampire Academy books?
Can I have a show of hands? Sorry, I'm a really loud person. Can you raise your hand if you did read the books? All right! Woo! Sick. All right, cool.
So, Sisi, what about the books made you fall in love with them?
They were my sister's books, actually, and she was obsessed with it. So I stole them, and I was like a young teen, and I read them, and it was kind of like the Twilight era, so I already really enjoyed that stuff, and I just loved them, like, best friendship between two really strong women, and forbidden lovers, and it's sexy and it's exciting, and there's action and everything that you need, really. And as a young girl, I just loved it. I just dug my claws into it, and I just didn't let it go. So getting the audition for this and then getting to be a part of it is like so cool. As a fan, like it's so cool.
And for every cast member here, what excited you the most about bringing your character to life?
Kind of going back on what you were talking about, I read the first book in 2 days as soon as, I realized there was a book series. And I was obsessed, and I absolutely knew that this was a story that needed to be told. And the fact that at the core of it is this female friendship. I know in my personal life, like, my female friendships are what, like, really drives my life.
Yeah.
So just having that and knowing that I could be a part of that really, really excited me.
So I kind of had the similar experience where after booking the audition, I read the first book, and I thought to myself, maybe I'm going to play Christian. I'm going to be more focused on Christian parts. But then I started reading the book, and I'm like, oh my God, Dimitri Rose just kissed. Do it. Oh my God, so much waiting.
That's him on set as well.
And I was like, I'm just hooked now. So I just became a fan, which is awesome. I think Christian is such a layered, complex soul someone who could hold a lot of resentment in his life, but at the same time has this like sliver of hope that he keeps in, and I just thought that was so beautiful, and I couldn't wait to portray that on screen.
I think for me, I saw the movie in the cinemas, which is an unlocked memory.
2015.
Yeah, in my last year of high school, I must admit it was just an unlocked memory when the audition came through. I was like, I really want to do this. This sounds cool. This guy sounds really intricate. So I did my little bit of research and was like, oh, whoa, I did see this movie. And then I read the book and I was like, whoa, this guy absolutely terrifies me. He's held with such respect and cherish. But I think that's, in essence, what drew me to him. It was like, this guy is loved, and for me, it's the intrigue. The interest of what we get to do in this show is we don't just get to see Dimitri on the outside. As the story goes on, it's all about what's underneath this discipline, this...
Yeah.
Maybe we'll see some vulnerability, who knows. But yeah, no, I just thank you to these guys for giving me the opportunity, and for you guys for keeping open-minded, and I hope you enjoy the story that we're going to tell.
And how are, let's cheers. How are some of these characters going to be different from what fans may be expecting?
Oh, well. I'm very sorry to inform you that Dimitri is not Russian. And I think that you will be okay with it once you get to know this remarkable and very, 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 very good man who's now embodying him. But outside of that, I think that we wanted to make sure that this ensemble looked and felt and culturally represented the world that we live in today. And we wanted that to be celebrated. We didn't want somebody like Sisi, who has an Australian accent, being from Australia.
You guys understand me?
Yeah, sometimes.
Okay, cool.
Sometimes.
I can't understand him.
I was going to say, maybe me, because everyone seems to not understand
No,
what I
nobody can understand you ever.
We were shooting in Spain, and everyone understood the Spanish people more than me, so...
But we didn't want to have to be like, oh, we're all part of one universal accent, we're all part of one universal origin, we're all part of one universal color, nationality, race, etc. We wanted to make sure that we had queer representation. We wanted to make sure that we had a colorful ensemble. And so in doing so, we made some shifts to characters. Sometimes they're just as simple as casting shifts. Sometimes it really impacted the thematic core of a character's existence. And that's part of the fun of adapting for a book that's especially been around for a while, adapting it for present day and really having a lot more awareness and knowledge of how to tell those stories than I even did, 10, 15 years ago.
Yeah, absolutely.
And I think it just makes it better.
I'm so proud of it, and I'm so proud of the way that you two brought everything together, and there's a perfect mix, and the balance and the chemistry is really that you did a great job. Congratulations.
I think
Why, thank you, Sisi.
we keep saying this word about essence.
Essence.
Well, I think for us all,
Everyone take a shot every time we
Sisi
say
said a better
essence.
word. The soul of the characters, I think, is there in every aspect. We've done our homework, we've done our research, we've all fell in love with the people that we are playing. And I think that will shine through regardless of the things that was once imagined on the page. These guys have run away and created a world that is living, breathing, it's dangerous, it's sexy, it's exciting, and hopefully you can stay. And just enjoy it, give it a watch, I promise. It's great. I promise you.
Please.
There's no bigger fan, by the way, of this entire show than Kieron. and no bigger fan of Dimitri on this planet, I think, than Kieron.
Yeah.
Maybe my mum. My mum really likes
His
me.
mom. His mom.
Yeah. Shout out, mum. I love you.
Shout out.
I think you might have some competition for the biggest fan of Dimitri in this room. I have a feeling. But obviously, since a massive part of Vampire Academy is the relationships between the characters, romance is a big part of it, but the best relationship at the center is between Rose and Lissa. So what are we going to be seeing from their dynamic in the first season?
What I love about Rose and Lissa, too, is they kind of seem like polar opposites, but they balance each other so well. And they come from a completely different class system, of course. And there's almost like a yin and yang to them. And that's
Definitely.
Explored as well in almost a metaphorical way. Like in the beginning of the series, there's this loss that they both go through. And you end up seeing this vulnerable side of Lissa and Rose kind of taking charge, doing her duty, being strong. And then as the show progresses, those roles kind of get flipped a little bit, and you see
Oh,
more
yeah.
vulnerability from Rose and Lissa, stepping into her power.
Yeah,
and
definitely.
I think that their dynamic as best friends is just so interesting and resonated a lot with me. And it's just beautiful. I mean, like two best friends,
Yeah.
I feel like that's such a fundamental part of being a woman, is your female friendships and how
Yeah.
you connect with them.
Soulmates.
And, yeah, we really are soulmates.
Yeah, lovers come and go, but best friends are forever.
Yeah.
Yes, absolutely. And now let's talk about the non-platonic relationships, because there's already some romance blooming in that sneak peek that we saw between Rose and Dimitri. There's a new meeting between them that we did not get to see in the books. So, and let's not forget about the third member of this potential love triangle, Mason Ashford, played by Andrew Liner, who's not here today, but is also a very important part of the story.
Crushes.
He's so good.
Wait, there's a third part of this relationship.
But what can you tell us about what we're going to see from those relationships this season?
From my perspective,
There is no Mason Ashford.
yeah. Actually, it was quite interesting because me and Drew get along so well, and we're quite similar in different respects, if that makes sense. And we both come from similar backgrounds in regards to competitiveness. So we had a, we had a very
These boys in training, absolutely ridiculous. They're doing chin-ups and they're like, I can attach a bigger weight to my stomach to do this chin-up.
I always got one more, so it's fine. He's not going to watch this, is he?
He's here.
No. But yeah, so it was interesting to see that we have chatted from, as opposed to a competitiveness, it was more of like a respect. We both come in the world that we're immersed in. They both are Dampiers, they're both bred to protect the Moroi. So there was a similarity, and it was all about the love for Rose as opposed to the competition between the two. And I think Drew will agree with that.
Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. I think that one of my favorite stories in the book was Rose's friendship with Mason, but I always felt so sorry for Mason because it just seemed like he didn't really have a chance, and even when she kind of would give him little chances. And one of the things that we wanted to do, look, I'm going to be honest, there was a plan to kill Mason real early on, just like in the books, and like that was going to happen. And
Ouch.
then we met Drew. Andrew Liner.
That's true.
And the first thing she said to me when we auditioned him and saw him for the first time was, Mason can't
never
die
dies.
soon." So in the absence of me not being able to kill Mason in the first 5 episodes, like I woulda, now we had, it was incumbent upon us to actually try to build a legitimate and honest and authentic tension, because Rose and Mason, as good friends, and as people with romantic chemistry, they're good at it. It shows up on screen, and so we actually have a little extra heat to that love triangle that I wouldn't have even planned for. Or
But they're
expected.
such honorable men, these two men.
Yeah, they're
That's
so
what I
honorable.
like. They're not trying to sort of outman each other. There's a respect that they have, grudging sometimes, but it makes it a very interesting triangle too, because what do you do? Because you're honor bound not to be that guy. That's not who you are. So it made it much more interesting.
Not to say that Mason won't die eventually. I'm just saying.
I mean,
Again, ouch.
Dimitri has nothing to do about it. I don't.
I'm just picturing Drew crying somewhere right now.
And then, Andre, we didn't get to see you in that sneak peek, but obviously you're still a massive part of the show. So what can you tell us about the potential budding romance we'll be seeing between Christian and Lissa?
Yeah, I think it's, without spoiling too much, I think it's a classic romance of this real, first meet chemistry. They first meet each other and they're like, we have this shared experience, we have this kind of resentment towards the society that we live in, and it's this real internal love that's being affected negatively by external factors. And I think we've all been there in some ways. I'm sure we've fallen for people who we can't be with due to distance or due to circumstances out of control. I know I have, and it's been really tough. And I think that's something that I really enjoyed portraying and enjoyed exploring within Christian. And oh my God, imagine getting to play her boyfriend on screen. I was dreaming every night. Yeah.
Oh, shut up. I think what's beautiful about Lissa and Christian too is they just have this thing about them where they see you. You know, even if it's an unspoken thing, it's like, I see you at your core. I see who you truly are. And I mean, they share so many similarities. They both had this traumatic thing happen where they lost their families. So I don't know. I would say there's like this unspoken thing from the beginning with Lissa and Christian that I think is really cute.
Very, very attractive, too.
That's one of the most fun things about adapting a book series. You know, the book series is all Rose single POV, right? Rose is your narrator. She tells you how she's feeling. Everything else is what she observes. She's able to get inside Lissa's head to know how Lissa is feeling so she can tell us that. But really, like, she's not in Christian Ozera's head. She's never in Dimitri's head. We, the writers, get to get inside their heads. We get to build their inner lives and build story out of those inner lives. And so Christian is a much more fully realized character in this series than he could have been in the books, in that we really only knew him by way of how what Rose knew of him and how Rose felt about him. So I'm excited about him specifically because, you know, Andre's so good at that soulful, smart, intelligent, compassionate, but also careful emotion for a character, and he really, really did a good job.
Yeah. A lot of pressure.
And Julie and Marguerite, does the first season span the entire first book, or are we going to get to see parts of other books, or not even the entire first book? What can we expect?
We see parts of several books is really the short answer. I mean, in talking about earlier about how it resonates with today, there's a big political story that happens later in the series, which we've pulled up because that's the now of it. And then there's pieces we kind of picked our way through to say what can we tell in this season that is coherent and that tease off a lot of stuff for next season. And I like how you always phrase it, which is if you're a fan of the books and you loved something in those books, trust us, we are fans of the books too. You will see it. It just might not be in the order that you expected. But all the things that you loved, we loved, like really loved. I think it shows.
No, I mean, for example, in sitting down to do the actual work of adapting a story, and you look at the first episode, and the first thing you decide is you don't want to start where the book starts because you want to tell the story that happened before, and the next thing you realize is that half the book is a party, in which the end result of which is a lust spell that makes a 17-year-old girl almost have sex with her teacher, and we were like, oh, shoot.
I want to rethink that.
What do we do now? So, and that's you know, that was probably, you know, is 80% of the story of the first book. And so we really did open up the world and pull a lot of, especially the royal intrigue stuff forward, and mixed up the way that we're telling the story while still trying to be as true as possible to the story that exists.
That sounds
Minus
incredible.
the last spell, I'm so sorry.
Sorry.
Ooh, ouch, again.
Me and Kieran were hurt. We were a little hurt by that one.
We didn't need it.
We didn't need it. Look, man, I'm going to be honest, as a fan of the book, that shit was hot. It was so hot. And so me and Kieran are like, when's the charm coming out? When's the necklace? And I think the way we did it is honestly better, and it's hotter, and you guys are gonna like it better. You're gonna like it more.
Amazing. And now, in a few minutes, we're going to start taking fan questions. So if you have a question for the cast or the creators, start to line up now. But in the meantime, let's get to know everyone a little bit better with some fun superlatives. What was everyone's first impressions of each other?
Heroes, I was a big Vampire Diaries fan. So when I was on the recall, I was like, oh my God, that Sheriff Fobbs.
You know what?
Oh my God.
When we were doing our first table read, this is literally, dude, I ever tell you
I
this?
know.
Oh, we were sitting across from each other. We were all there. We're just in this little room in the monastery in Spain, all in our, grungy, just reading the thing. And I keep looking up, and I'm like, I'm like, he's looking at me. And I looked at him. And then all of a sudden, I'm like, he's looking at me again. I'm like, what is going on? And then he was like, I'm sorry, but I watched all the Vampire Diaries. And I know it's so weird that Sheriff Forbes is sitting here in this table read. So it was adorable.
Fanboy.
Yeah, fan behavior.
All these guys just amazing. I couldn't have imagined sharing the floor with three more special people, especially on my first sort of big opportunity. We all met on Zoom, interestingly enough, and the world was in a very different place. And then we had a couple of days in Madrid, and
Yeah, the first time that we ever met each other in real life. Like, we'd been in the group chat a bit, getting to know each other. And then the first time we ever met, it was just us four in Madrid for a few days. And we went out every night. We forced Andre to drink a little bit too much vodka.
we tell the story about Daniela.
Yeah, when I slipped in the street of Madrid, I slipped, fell on my
ass.
Yeah, literally fell on my ass. And that was literally the first time I met them. I was like running up to Sisi. I was like, "Hey!" She's like, "Hey!" And then it was like, boom, boom.
There's like 50
I
people
stayed
there, and the way she
there.
open handled it, it was like, "You're cool." Like, she was like it was nothing.
I stayed there. They were like, okay, get up. Everyone's staring. And I was like, this is so embarrassing. How am I going to recover? I'm just going to stay here.
And
then
the boys rushed to your aid.
No.
Yeah.
I was like, I'm a terrible guardian because I was like, she's dead. Aren't we?
And then Andre rushed to her aid.
I was in shock. I was like,
I feel like I was holding a pizza at the time, like Rose's favorite food. Of course, I'm holding a pizza when Lissa falls over. And then I have this pizza and I'm like, oh, I'm supposed to be your guardian. Like, let me put this pizza down and pick you up from the floor. Like,
Eventful is our first impression, maybe.
Yeah, and then we played cards that night. Got someone to come to our room and be like, please keep it down. It's like,
it was my room. I got. They all were like, we can be loud. It's fine. It's Spain. And I got a call like,
It's
hey,
Spain.
there are other people sleeping in this hotel, by the way. Can you please
need
keep
to
it
sleep
down?
in Spain too, guys.
And let's do some rapid fire superlatives. Who's most likely to be late to set?
I'd say it's between me and Sisi.
Yeah, that's nice of you,
I
Danny.
take the lead though, definitely.
Late to pick up, late to set, right?
Yeah.
Late to pick up, late to set.
Yeah, there we go.
True.
You know, but in my defense, I mean, Lissa has about 1,700 parts to her outfit
Yeah,
and
that's
hair
true.
and
Yeah.
shoes. So, yeah.
And 3 more.
Blame it on someone
So
else.
yeah, pretty much.
And I guess that leads me to my next question. Who is the best dressed?
Dimitri. Absolutely.
I have like 3 outfits.
Yeah, I did have 3 outfits. 3
Lissa
great,
Dragomir.
Solid
In
outfits.
the show, Lissa Dragomir
Yes,
is
has
Yeah.
The Queen's got some great
Oh,
stuff.
the
right.
Jay,
Sorry.
Jay August has
Jay
some
August.
Looks
outfits.
like a pig.
Oh, yeah,
He has
Victor
some
Dashkov.
they're all, there's a lot of good.
Good fashion.
But all of the Maroi, particularly the royals, they get to wear these beautiful, extravagant clothes. Danny's there decked out in like Valentino and stuff.
Yeah, I remember the umbrella I have. Like, it was like made of feathers. It was so beautiful.
It was a museum piece.
Yes, and it was a museum
They were
piece.
like,
That's what I was
"By
going
the
to say, from
way,
Paris.
Yeah, from Paris.
And she's like, it's a one of a
Yeah,
kind.
it was borrowed from a museum in Paris, and I didn't know that.
No, neither
And
did I.
they didn't
one
have
told
it in a
us that.
scene they needed it for, and it was really muddy. And I said, "Where's the umbrella?" And the costume assistant said, "We don't have the umbrella." And I said, "Well, we need the umbrella." And she looked at me, and she's like, "I don't think Sonia wants to shoot with the umbrella right now." And I'm like, "The umbrella's in the other scene, so the umbrella's going to be in this scene." And then we get in a bicycle accident with the umbrella, and the assistant's like, "Please just tell me the umbrella isn't dirty. It can't get dirty." I'm like, really? In my head, I'm like, who gives a about the umbrella? The umbrella survives, thank God, because we then found out that it was a priceless item borrowed
literally
from
one
a
of a kind.
Paris museum that I put into a scene without
I should have took it on.
Yeah, I mean, doing like all the fittings with Sonia Grande, I felt like I was in The Devil Wears Prada. She was incredible.
Looked like
her
that.
vision, and she would just be like, "It's not right. Get the Valentino." And I was like, "What's happening? I've never worn Valentino." Like, yeah, it's amazing.
All right, now let's take some fan questions. Reminder to please ask a question, no statements. Don't ask to take a selfie. Please ask a question.
Okay.
Thank you.
Hi, everyone. My name is Russell Thung, and I'm so excited to be here.
Yay!
This question is for the producers and the cast. What were some things that you were excited to do, or get to do, or you have already done, that you normally wouldn't get to do on a traditional broadcast network television show?
I mean, I know mine off the bat, and it's playing with fire. So, like, I don't know any young kid who doesn't want to be like a superhero when he grows up. And the fact that I got to play and manipulate with fire on this show so often was an absolute dream come true. It kind of makes
so
me sound like a pyromaniac right now, which I'm not, but it was just super fun.
I appreciated that Rose was able to have a potty mouth, because
Yes,
Rose to me seemed
we
like
can
she should have a
sweat.
potty mouth. And then, on a less sort of glib note, when you are working in broadcast television, if you're putting a show on, say, for example, the CW, it has to run at like 41 minutes and 12 seconds, period. Like not 41:10, not 41:15, like 41:12. And I can't tell you over hundreds of episodes of television how many episodes that I felt were perfect at 2 minutes over, 10 minutes over, 4 minutes over, even 20 seconds over. And to get it ready for air, I had to go in and cut stuff out. And as Marguerite likes to say, when you're cutting stuff out, you're cutting out that big, beautiful shot that you really loved, because it's not advancing the story. You're cutting out the air and the breath that gives the audience time to react to the story that they're experiencing. You're just saying, okay, thank you, move on to the next scene. And we did okay, we told really good stories, but there are versions of every episode, not every, but many episodes of Vampire Diaries that were really extraordinary, but 8 to 12 minutes long, and there's just no freedom there. And here on streaming, we have all that freedom. We don't take advantage of it.
No.
We don't just write long episodes because we can. Our episodes are still, under 50 minutes, more or less, but it's just, you get to keep the stuff that works and that you're proud of, and you don't have to be forced to slice and dice.
Yeah, it's a luxury, and
Yeah.
it makes it better.
Thank you for the question.
Thank you.
Look at this.
Wow.
That's a great
That
question.
outfit,
God.
unbelievable. I'm
Thank you
obsessed.
so much. In the first Vampire Diaries book, the politics is very much in the background until the end. Now that you're doing more court intrigue and bringing all that to the front, how is that going to affect the personal relationships between the characters and how we first meet them?
Oh, hi. Well,
Go on, princess.
you already
Resident political expert to my left.
you actually already saw how they meet, so we're sort of showing the story before. And we like to say, when we were talking about Rose and Lissa, what their backstory was, they met. You'll see when you see the whole episode where they met when they were 5, and Lissa says this line that Julie and I always tear up at because we're big babies, but where she's like, I remember seeing you standing all alone at Family Day.
Oh, don't make me
And it's
cry.
like your heart hurts, and these two young girls sort of like recognized each other and became bonded and were best friends. And so during all of that time, they also kind of lived in a bubble because Rose was able to be sort of taken in by the Dragomir family and their privilege and all of that. So she was a Dhampir and she was training, but she also didn't quite experience the Dhampir life in the way that Dhampir normally would. And Lissa was a pampered royal. So they're in a bubble. They don't know the world that they're in. So what we thought was really important was to show them
The bubble bursting.
open their eyes, that bubble burst the day, when this crash happens, everything changes.
Yeah.
And what do they do about it? Because it just immediately propels them into the different worlds that they were born into. And then they have to decide what they want to do about it. And that's going to challenge them
Yeah.
for the rest of, the seasons, all of them, I hope. So that's kind of our jumping off point. So it will push them, and we just wanted to see where they sprang from.
That's awesome. Thank you.
Thank you. We love your costume.
Love your costume too.
Yes.
Oh yes.
Scarlet Witch. So one thing I really, really enjoyed about the books was Lissa's struggle, being discussed of her mental health. Are we gonna see that in the show, her struggles with mental health?
I don't know how much of this I can say, so I'm going to pass it over to Julie.
We live in that a little bit. We did make a decision not to have her past the pilot engage in much self-harm. So that's an element from the books that we decided to get rid of. We do kind of touch on it a little bit. Those of you who read the books know why Lissa has thoughts in her head that she can't explain. And the entire first season is about getting to the bottom of that, getting to the bottom of this so-called darkness, telling the mirroring story of other people that you might know from the book that went through the same thing. And I'm going to stop right there before the people who haven't read the books, start to get annoyed. But the answer is a quiet yes.
Quiet, yes.
Thank you. Hi, for the actors, you said you read their books, so after reading the books, did that influence how you played your characters?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
I think, obviously these characters are loved by so many, but the beauty of blueprint material like that is you get to see how people attach to these characters, what it is about them, their attributes, not so much in regards to their physicality, but their how they move, their gestures, their personality comes through in what they say, what don't they say. And these things are like all stuff that we all did our homework on, I believe, which brings us back to the essence point. It's kind of like the soul is in the books. So now, I know, let's get the shots out. The soul of the characters in the books, and these beautiful writers have just transcended that, and we get the opportunity to just colour that in a little bit, a sprinkle of ourselves to it, and see what makes these characters tick and what their thought process is, and hopefully you'll see that homework's been done, really.
Yeah, and the books are amazing too, so you can really see, I mean, through Rose's perspective, but at least for Lissa, like the way Rose would talk about Lissa and what were key elements of what Rose saw in Lissa or what made her kind of stand out. And I took those traits and really tried to incorporate them in my take on Lissa.
Yeah, it was kind of what these guys said, because they said it so perfectly. But yeah, I think Julie said something pretty interesting. There's parts of the book or parts of the story that you don't get to see because it's from a different character's perspective. Yeah. It's not Rose. Like, to me, when I read the part where Rose tells Christian that he shouldn't be with Lissa and he's too dangerous for her, and he goes off on his own without talking to her, it's like, what did he do during that time? Like, where did he go? How did he cope with that? How did he process that? And I think that changed how I kind of thought about him, because I got to make those moments in my head while playing him as well.
You know, it's so interesting hearing you four talk, and it's really moving because what they are showing is how much they respect and appreciate the source material and how much work they put into absorbing it and wanting to celebrate it, which is how we feel. You know, I think the only person who read a Vampire Diaries book was Michael Trevino. And I think he finally said, like 8 years later, Tyler Lockwood says, yeah, it's because I knew you and Kevin were going to be on our flight to Vancouver, and I wanted to look smart to you and kiss a little ass.
Very nice.
So I think that's really lovely that you all have put that kind of thought and care into it.
It's really important for us to...
Feels like a respect thing as well,
exactly,
right?
Exactly. To keep the fans happy and myself happy as well with my initial love for the books. You know, and they're so supportive. Like, you guys are so supportive. We get so many messages and tweets and all of this stuff being like just so ready to accept what we're putting out, even though it might be a little bit different from the books, even though we might not look exactly the way the characters are described and that kind of stuff. But like, it's just this overwhelming wave of love and support, and like, thank you so much for that stuff. Like, it's so important to us, and it is a responsibility that we feel, and we just want to please you, and we want you to be happy.
And also, like, when you love a book so much, there's like a little bit of ownership that comes with it. Like, it's like your baby too, even though you didn't write it or anything. It's like, oh, but like, you know, and you get so attached to these characters, and that was super important for all of us, and we took that really seriously.
Rose and I are too similar. It's like,
they really are.
Scary.
Yeah, they really,
gets me
really
into
are.
trouble. Also gets me out of trouble. But I mean, she was my favorite character, and even just as soon as the audition came, I was like, I know her. I know this bitch. She is. I am her. Let's go.
And that's the thing as well. Like, just playing on that. Your version of Rose helped me find my Dimitri. You know, like the Dimitri books is formed through like.
Likewise.
What Christine said, sorry, Christine. Oh my God, so sorry.
Oh my God, we do this all the time.
Andre says all the time. Is that there's a side of the story that you didn't see for Christian. What did he do in that moment? Like, don't forget, this love triangle. Dimitri's fallen in love with Rose just as much as she's fallen in love with him in the books. And I think our interpretation, I owe you a massive part of my work, you know? And you find that through the training, you find that through different things, and you can't get that from a book. You can't really get that from the script. That's all lived experience.
Yeah,
and
we get a lot.
Translates to the performance.
Like, particularly all of you guys, like, you're such talented actors. Sometimes I stand across from them and I just blank because I'm just watching them being like, wow, they're so pretty, they're so talented. And like,
oh,
hey, Sisi, time to move. Or I'm making a TikTok for you guys. But like, you guys are they're so talented and they're so generous, and what you always want to be doing is working with people, whatever your craft is, or your passion is, you always want to be working with people who are better than you, because then they elevate what you're doing. And these guys elevate. I can see it in myself. I'll watch something back and be like, that's actually better work than I've been doing for the last 2 years of my life. And I have that to owe because, like, that was you, Danny. Like, she's on set and she's just giving me everything and she's crying because this is so sad and traumatized. And I'm like, okay, I can't cry too much because that's not the scene. But, like, you're just, all of you, you're just right there with me. And that's exactly what I needed. And it just made everything so much better.
It's the same with you. Like, you have this ease to do everything, you know? And it's literally like Rose. It's like she works well, like almost like under pressure better. Like, it's the weirdest thing. And when you least expect it, she'll show up and like be a badass, like literally like Rose. And it's so interesting because our relationship as Sisi and Danny, also, it's almost like they kind of bled together.
Oh, yeah,
like,
absolutely.
There would be moments where I don't even know how to explain it, but like I just knew that Sisi needed a hug, like something so simple, like.
And then I burst into tears.
Yeah,
and it would, I knew.
Yeah, and it would be like she would just, you know, kind of be in herself again, literally like Rose.
Yeah.
And kind of keep that to herself, and no one would really ask her anything or kind of be like, hey, you know. And it was just, I had to say nothing and just hug her, and we both just knew. And then there's a line in the show where I say Rose, and she just says, I know. And that's all we needed to say was, I know. And I was like, oh my God. And I was like, oh my God, that's low-key me and Sisi. It was like, I didn't have to say anything. It was like, I know. Like, I know exactly what it is. And then she was crying, and I was like, okay, we can't cry right now. Like, we have to shoot this. Like, stop.
One more question? I unfortunately, that's all the time we have for questions.
Oh my God, I'm so sorry.
I wish we could do this all day, believe me. But before our time is up here, a quick reminder that Penguin Random House is hosting a poster signing opportunity with the casting creators at booth 1514 from 5 to 6 p.m. today, so be sure to swing by. And plus, we've got an exciting exclusive surprise first look trailer for you.
Oh, yeah. Oh, shit. I forgot.
But before that happens, the cast wants to take a group selfie with everyone, so put on your St. Vlad's hat, stand up, smile. I mean, I guess don't smile, you're wearing a mask, no one can see it. But put on your hats and look this way.
Are they in it? Or are we?
Wait, yeah, do the selfie.
How do you do it?
Absolutely. Oh, okay. All right. How do we do this?
All right, we got to get together.